Good day, everyone. Today, we will be discussing about introduction to disaster concepts as part of our lessons on disaster readiness and risk reduction. So come on, let's get started. Our goal in this session is to help you understand the meaning of disaster, differentiate the risk factors underlying disasters, and describe the effects of disasters on one's life. Wendell Berry shared with us a very inspiring quote about environmental protection. He emphasizes that the Earth is what we all have in common. We are all its visitors, and we should make sure that we take good care of what we have, thus, avoid man made disasters. But hey, what does a disaster mean anyway? A disaster is defined by Oxnard.org as a calamitous event, especially one occurring suddenly and causing great loss of life, damage, or hardship. Sufficient resources are not available in the event of disasters. Remember this graph presented by the University of the Philippines a few months ago? They predicted that this current event, which is the coronavirus pandemic, can go beyond our current health system capacity. When that happens, our healthcare resources, including physicians, nurses, medical technologists, radiologic technologists, and other healthcare personnel, the personal protective equipment, available number of beds, etc., will be inadequate in a given area to take care of the number of people with critical illnesses. Thus, more deaths and infections will be evident. When resources become insufficient, then we have a disaster. So, what do you call the event when resources are still sufficient? It is called an emergency, which is a sudden, urgent, and unexpected event requiring immediate action, usually requiring help. So you see, both disasters and emergencies may be sudden and urgent, but the availability of resources to manage great loss of life, damage, or hardship is what differ one from the other. Resources are key to ensuring that the situation or event can be managed accordingly. Now that we understand how disasters are different from emergencies, let's talk about risks. So, what is a risk? Based on ISO 31000 version of 2018, a risk is an effect of uncertainty on objectives. So, when you have an objective and any uncertainty caused by the event or situation brings a positive or negative effect, then that is considered a risk. We will give more examples about this later. There are many factors you can look into when considering risks, including when taking into account a disaster. Some of the key terms you will need to be familiar with includes risk sources. So these are elements which alone or in combination has the potential to give rise to a risk. Potential events, on the other hand, are occurrences or changes of a particular set of circumstances. Consequences are outcomes of an event affecting objectives, while likelihood is a chance of something happening. Phew, that was a lot to take. Let's make it more practical, shall we? What the last statement talks about basically boils down to what a good risk statement is. According to Isaka, a good risk statement would be an event that has an effect on objectives caused by causes or cause that results into a consequence or consequences. Let's take, for example, this coronavirus pandemic. We all know that the objective set by the Department of Health is to minimize the number of COVID 19 cases in the country. One of the risks in this coronavirus pandemic, which is the event, is of course not meeting this objective. In the prediction provided by the University of the Philippines, cases can go beyond 24,000 cases by June 15, 2020 if the enhanced community quarantine is lifted by May 15, 2020. Thus, putting our perspective prior to May 15, where everyone stays at home because of the enhanced community quarantine, The risk statement would then compose of number one, the event that has an effect on the objective. So, we all know that the virus transmits from people to people. So, the more people we allow to go out and mingle with one another, the higher the chances of transmitting the virus. Thus, more people will get diagnosed with COVID 19. Allowing more people to go out of their homes and travel to workplaces is the event that has an effect on objectives. The cause of the event is number two. So, how can more people be allowed to go out then? Of course, this is if the enhanced community quarantine is lifted. Then it means more people can go back to work. More people going back to work means more people who can actually pass the virus from one another. Thus, the cause of the event is lifting the enhanced community quarantine after May 15, 2020. Number three, the consequence of the event. This is a hypothetical scenario and may be actually one of the multiple scenarios based on a sound analysis. So, for the study made by UP, they did an assumption that allowing more people to go out of their homes and travel to workplaces will result to more than 24,000 COVID-19 cases by June 15, 2020. So that is the statement that one of the possible results which this event can actually yield. Great! You have just experienced how to create a good risk statement. Now, let's try to help you understand the general effects of disasters to one's life. To keep it simple, we use the typical reactions that a person will handle risks arising from disasters. Remember, it is all about the risks. So, you can avoid a risk, mitigate a risk, transfer a risk, or just accept the risk. Well, what do they mean? The best scenario is when you can avoid the risk. In the prior example, this means that you can just walk away from the cliff. If it is not an option, then you can mitigate the risk. This means that you will have to do some sort of action to ensure that the damage to you will be as little as possible. Just like having someone put a trampoline at the foot of the cliff. If not possible, then you can transfer the risk. This means that you pay someone to accept the risk for you. Commonly, this is in a form of an insurance bought in the real world. However, if all of these options are not possible, then you are just left with the option of accepting the risk. In this current pandemic situation, are you able to think of what option you have? So, I currently am inside the house, so I stay away from interacting with people. Thus, I avoid the risk of getting infected coronavirus by not going out. No face to face interaction with people means no chance of transmission. Phew! Congratulations for making it this far. Now, I will ask you to do the same activity we did a while ago. Can you provide a risk statement based on the objective you have or you think someone else has? Share this risk statement with your friends or parents or guardians and see what they will have to say. Until then, keep safe and smart.